You want to see my underwear? It's purple.
Camouflage just doesn't go with red, white, blue.
Polka dot. I know.
It's a nice swing.
I should just flip it over.
I have a white one out in my car if you want it.
I can just flip this around.
Yeah.
I'm getting yelled if this thing hangs over my ear.
I'm never gonna get used to it.
I agree. Somebody should tell Doug.
That's more American.
That's sort of
What
the.
what you got there, Chief?
You're gonna get used to it if you don't put it on.
Mass police.
Hey, actually,
Thorpe
the
says
Chiefs
not
will work
forced.
for you real well.
I heard. Yeah. Hey, yeah, let me borrow your mask. It'll match with my tie.
Because we tie the ensemble.
Yeah. That'd be real hygienic.
really
Real hygienic. Okay. I will call this, are we all ready there, Kathy?
Yes, we are.
And are we all ready there, IT Director?
We're all there, sir.
Thank you, sir. I will call this regular council meeting to order. Please stand for the pledge. Mr. Gaelick?
I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please remain standing for a moment, please. Heavenly Father, please give the leaders of our country, the state, and our local municipalities the strength and the wisdom to make the right decisions in these trying times. Give our residents the faith to trust in all of us here at the city level to do what is best for all of us. In the heat of the day, in the unknown caused by the virus, in the heat of the protests and unrest, keep us well grounded and remind us daily to praise thy name, forgive those who trespass against us, and to continue to do your will. Bless all of us here tonight. We ask for all of this in your holy name. Amen. Okay, Kathy, roll please.
Carter. Walter.
Here.
Epperson.
Here.
Barstow.
Here.
Hampshire. Here. Gaelic.
here.
Lee.
Here.
Okay, we have a quorum present. First thing on the agenda tonight, as you're looking at your agenda, just know that Jude's son had an appointment tonight and he will reschedule. So we do have Nick Chesak from Julian and Grube for the post-audit conference. Scott, if you would, please. Excuse me. Good evening, Nick.
Hello,
How are you? If you could give us your name and address, please, I'd appreciate it.
Nick Chiswick with Julian Group at 333 County Line Road West, Westerville.
And anything you want to say, Jamie, first, or any prelude?
We've talked about at the last meeting that the audit went well. Very pleased with the results. We've been with Julian and Group now for 6 years, and been pleased. That's all I have.
Okay.
I think Jamie has distributed the CAFR and all the letters to everybody at some point. I'm not sure if everyone's read through the 260 page document. At least thumb through it, I don't know. So all I brought with me are letters that we put in there that have our name on it. Everything else was presented and created by Jamie and his staff. So I just kind of go over through these letters, kind of give you an overview of what we did, anything we noted or anything like that. If there's any questions, shout out, or Jamie has my contact. You guys can get hold of us at any time. So for the first letter I have here is our independent auditor report. This is our report that gives our opinion on the actual audit. Just to give you a heads up, it was an unmodified report, which means we didn't have to make any adjustments to your financial statements or anything material, at least, to correct it. responsibilities as the auditor and what standards we follow as far as the government auditing standards. It discusses the management's responsibility to prepare the financial statements for us to review, to basically supply any kind of documentation that we need to come to our conclusions. I'm not going to read through this for you, but then the opinion, like I said, it was an unmodified opinion, which is the best opinion you can get. Like I said, we didn't have any material changes, adjustments, or anything like that to note. We do have this extra paragraph in here. It's called the emphasis of matters. If there's anything that comes up during the year or new GASB pronouncements that have a large effect on your audit, we typically throw that in there just to bring the reader's attention to it. There were two that we had this year. One was GASB 84, in which case it kind of restructured your old agency funds. Now they're called custodial. It may have moved some funds into your government funds. It was just kind of a lot of work to move a few funds around and restate certain things. It didn't really have a lot of effect on your financial statements, but we just put it in because it did restate some beginning balances. The other emphasis of matter that we're putting in basically every single audit that we're doing right now has to do with the pandemic, and saying that basically it didn't affect the 19 obviously, but you're probably seeing it already affect your financial statements and investments and taxes and anything like that. So we just had a comment on there, and like I said, you're going to see this in any report you see this year. It's going to say that due to the COVID-19 pandemic, there's subsequent events that next year, there might be some big changes. Who knows? Other matters, we talk about the required supplementary information, which is your management discussion analysis. If you've never picked up a audit report, I would suggest reading through that as opposed to reading through the note disclosures. It's a lot more user-friendly. It makes more sense. The note disclosures are all required by GASB. It gets to be hard to read sometimes, honestly, with the changing verbiage they have in there. So, and the management discussion analysis is created by Jamie and his staff as well. There are some forecasting and things like that in there, therefore we do not put an opinion on it. However, we review it, make sure all the numbers in there are accurate compared to the financial statements that we did opine on. There's also the schedules of the net pension asset, OPEB liability. We talked about that a couple of years ago, maybe 2 or 3 years ago, about this large liability that's out there for every government had to pick it up. Ohio's a little different because you have state pension systems where if they collapse, it's not like you guys have to pay your portion of that extra liability. It's on them still, but it's a GASB rule that you have to follow, basically. So there's this huge liability on, like I said, every city, every village, every town, anybody that's put into the pension systems is going to have this huge disclosure and potential liability. The introductory section, your combining sections, your statements, everything that makes it a CAFR. We don't really have, we can't put an opinion on those either. Once again, we read through them, make sure everything's accurate. The purpose of those is just to be as transparent as possible. If you look at another city that doesn't have a CAFR, they would just have the management discussion analysis, the financial statements, and your note disclosures. They won't give you all the information about every single fund you have. They won't give you disclose the budget for every fund. They won't give you this whole transmittal letter that states a lot of stuff that's going on in the city over the last 10 years, basically. They won't give you the stats section that discloses everything that's happened here once again the last 10 years. So it's just a way of being extremely transparent, and it's I enjoy doing CAFRs honestly, just because you learn a lot about the city through that. The other letter I was going to talk about is our government audit standards letter. This goes over internal control as well as compliance, how we do our risk-based. We look at internal controls, we test them. Depending on how the controls are, we can potentially increase or decrease substantive testing, do more analytics and things like that if you have good internal controls. So we do test some of those every year. Once again, it says we don't have an opinion on your internal controls because they were yours. We do, however, test them. If they're not working, we will put citations in your report saying this, you have a significant deficiency or material weakness of this control. It's just not working, or it's just not in place. Then we also talk about, the Ohio Revised Code Compliance Supplement. So there's this huge supplement that comes out every year that the auditor state creates, based on all the ORCs, or at least the main ones that would apply to a city or village or whatever it may be. We go through that every year and do the testing. We test all your budgetary information, those are always the big ones, your debt, things like that, transfers. And then in here, we would disclose if we had any findings associated with those compliance, which we did not. We did not have any internal control findings either. So, like I said, all in all, very clean audit. No issues to note. And then we could also do a management letter comment if we had some issues that weren't quite material to your audit report. However, we felt like they were enough to actually put down in writing and submit to the state. We didn't have anything like that this year either. No management letter comments, just some small verbal recommendations that I've never worked on an audit that didn't have verbal recommendations. So we always have something that we can say, this was off by a little bit, work on this a little bit, or just something we've seen in a city of your size or something that's worked. We say maybe try to implement that. Those type of things. Then the last thing I have here was a new, it's called the Sunshine Law rating system that the Auditor of State has come out with. It has to do, once again, with transparency for your public records and your Open Meetings Act. We have to do additional testing this year on that. You get stars now. So if you are in complete compliance with it, as well as you're doing a lot of these best practices the Auditor of State has come up with, you can get up to 4 stars. You guys did get all 4 stars. I haven't seen too many, honestly, that have. So you do a great job with implementing these best practices. You didn't even know were best practices until they told you. So you're ahead of the game. And I don't know where that's going to be posted or if it has already or not. I'm assuming it's going to be on the Auditor of State's website where they'll post all the 4-star entities, 3-star, 2-star, 1-star, non-compliance. I haven't seen it yet, but
I've not heard anything.
we did issue you guys the top 4 stars though. Any questions so far? Like I said, that's about all I got to go over, but I'm here to answer questions.
I couldn't understand what you were saying. What was that test called? The STAR test?
Yeah, it's the STAR test. That's the acronym they use in the STARS.
STARS.
Yeah.
Okay,
So
it's an
it's
acronym. Okay, I'm sorry.
Sunshine Law
Missed that.
Rating System, which ends up somehow being STARS.
Fair enough.
Anything else so far?
And like I said, it's been great working with Jamie for the last 6 years. Our contract is currently up. However, I know that you guys are going back out to bid. We would definitely love to work with you again if given the option for as long as we can, and look forward to come back if we can.
All right, well, thanks for coming in and, okay.
I was going to let everybody else ask. I've got a couple.
Sure, go ahead.
If I could, there were a couple items last year that you had found through the audit. In reading this, I didn't see where you identified or specifically tested for those items that you had found last year. How were those dealt with, and what recommendations, if they were made last year, did you verify had been satisfied? And these had to do with back pay for leave or for somebody who resigned,
Severance pay.
that kind of stuff.
Yeah, it was last year was severance pay, which a finding for recovery was issued to I think 9 different past employees, of which their pay was they were overpaid basically, so they had to pay the money back. So we tested all the severance pay again this year, the new ones. Had minor issues, just with rounding issues basically. And I think we heard from the state about a week or 2 before we were going to issue the report that the finding for recovery was completely paid off. So anytime we have a finding, either a management letter comment, any kind of citation, even verbal recommendations that we feel there was an issue, we will retest those the next year. And as long as there was no issues, we just won't reissue it. If it was an actual report citation and as a significant deficiency or material weakness, there would actually be a report saying prior year this, and was it corrected, yes or not. But as far as a management letter, once you fix that, we just won't reissue it. But we, like I said, that's one of the things we do, we look at last year's findings, make sure we retest those, to make sure that they've been corrected.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Did you have another one?
That's okay. That makes perfect sense. Thank you.
Okay.
Now's the time, if you got another one. You got it? Okay. Anybody else? Well, thank you again for taking your evening and coming in, and we appreciate what you do.
Okay, absolutely, thank you.
Thank you.
If you have any questions, feel free to contact me. I'm working from home, but I think my phone goes directly to my cell phone now, so you got an email too, so. All right.
Very good.
Thanks.
Thanks, Nick. Good night.
Thank you, sir. Rob.
Yes, please.
Thanks, sir.
Next up is Rob Platt, Southwest Licking Sewer and Water rep with an update, so. Name and address, sir.
Name is Rob Black, 371 Woodside Drive, Pataska, Ohio. I am, you know me as your appointee to the Southwest Licking Sewer and Water Board. I'm here tonight to answer any questions, kind of give my general update of the district and its happenings. So feel free, any questions you have, I'm happy to answer. Specifically, I know I had some conversations with Tim. I was here, I believe, 2 meetings ago, and the district and the city, various officials have had discussions concerning how to get sewer service, adequate sewer service to the JRS site. And I shared with you a couple of meetings ago that it's, in short, it's a very layered, convoluted, just mess of different things that are entities involved and agreements that are in place and all that. There's really not a good way for us to figure out how to unwind that and address, try to figure out how to address it without having a total picture of everything that's there. And in my opinion, what we needed was a professional, a consulting firm's opinion and recommendations on how to go about that. So the district, as I shared with you, proposed bringing in a consultant at the expense of the district, not of the cities, to try to figure out a solution, a financial analysis, and a proposal of how to get that done. We've heard numbers anywhere between $2 million to $5 million to get adequate sewer service there. We'll see the JRS actually develop. It's been at least 10 years that I know of that it's sat vacant, with the exception of the AT yard that's over there. But so really, in short, this agreement that's before you tonight that we're asking for approval of is the district's proposal to try to partner with the city to find a way to do this, to move forward. We would bring a consultant on board, probably Montrose Group is who we've talked to, a reputable firm with a lot of experience in economic development and some of these incentives and things, and ask them to put forth a proposal in to both the city and the district. But then we would ask the city to follow up with the things that seemed that made sense to do or would help to try to get some of those things in place to make that happen. So that's in a nutshell the interagency agreement you have before you. I'm happy to answer any questions on that. And the district as a whole, as Mr. Schrock I'm sure will tell you, everybody is looking for water all the time. It's just a resource that's in high demand, and the district is no different. We are looking at drilling various places throughout the district to try to meet customer demand and look to the future and meet any demand that way as well. So again, I don't know that I have anything other than the agreement specifically to speak of, but I'm happy to answer any questions.
Anything for Rob?
Mayor.
Yes.
First, Rob, thank you for working on that. I know it's been a long time coming, and we finally at least had something to point us in the right direction, hopefully soon. My question is, if we do agree to that tonight and we move forward with that consultant, how long do you anticipate that report to take? I mean, is it a year long? Is it a 2 month? Just curious.
Yeah, so that's a great question. We specified a 6-month term in at max. We simply don't know. Is it 60 days? Is it 90 days? I don't know. Like I said, there's the group of district officials and city officials met numerous times trying to figure out a path forward, trying to unwind some of this. And there's just so much to it over the years. The city's done a lot of things and put mechanisms in place. The county has. There's as you all know, a JED in place that's, wound in with the income tax, and just there's a lot of mechanisms in there that are in some ways conflicting or not necessarily harmonious, so there's things that need to be unwound and looked into. I would not anticipate any quicker than 60 days if I had to guess, but I'm hoping that 60 to 90 day timeframe,
Okay,
certainly by the end of the year.
okay, thanks.
So,
Okay, anything else? All right, thank you, sir.
sir, I will not be staying for the rest of the meeting, but I do ask for your approval of it, and again, there's not a financial commitment by the city. This is just, we're trying to establish a partnership to find a way forward. The district recognizes that in the future it'll get its money back through tap fees and stuff, so it's not as if that's the big hindrance here. We're just trying to find a partnering path forward to find a solution to what's been a years-long problem, so,
Awesome.
thank you all.
Thanks,
Say
Ron.
hi-
Thanks, Ron.
Say hi to the wife and kids.
I will do so. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, introduction, discussion, and approval of consent agenda matters.
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Barstow,
Second.
seconded by Mr. Epperson. Discussion?
Yes.
Yes.
Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to amend the consent agenda to include, excusing Mr. Lee from the July 6th meeting, please.
Okay, we have a motion to amend. Need a second?
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Gaelic. Discussion? And roll on the motion to amend.
Walter,
Yes.
Epperson,
Yes.
Barstow,
Yes.
Hampshire,
Yes.
Gaelic,
Yes.
Lee,
Yes.
Carter, she's absent.
All right, motion passes. Back to the original consent agenda matters. Discussion and roll.
Walter,
Yes.
Epperson,
Yes.
Barstow,
Yes.
Hampshire,
Yes.
Gaelic,
Yes.
Lee,
Yes.
Consent agenda passes as amended. On to reports, I really don't have anything until later on. Mr. Barstow, what do you got?
Just a couple things, Mr. Mayor. Want to give a shout out to Eric Osborne. Ozzy Osborne lives in Ward 3. He was part of an effort to raise money for Christmas in July for Kids and Children's Hospital. I think Ozzy himself raised about $3,000, and I think the group from Pataskla as a whole raised over $10,000 to purchase toys, and they purchased quite a few, and they were able to deliver them to Children's Hospital over the weekend. So he's very excited about that, and his fellow motorcycle club members were very excited about that, and I think the kids had a pretty good time too. So just a shout out to Ozzy for that.
Very good,
Good stuff.
good stuff. Mr. Zetz,
I have nothing, thank you, Mayor.
Mr. Hicken,
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have a couple things. I want to talk a little bit about Resolution 2020-50. That is the agreement that Mr. Platt just talked about. It is the agreement between the city and Southwest Licking Sewer and Water District. And I appreciate you all stepping forward to help us out to look into how we get sewer to that site. Mr. Zetz has reviewed that, but I'm sure he can answer any legal questions, but ask council to consider passing that resolution. Also, Resolution 2020-047, which has also been reviewed, is the agreement between the Licking Park District, Thomas Evans Foundation, and us for the trail in Foundation Park. There may be some conversation about that, maybe when the resolution comes up. I'm happy to answer it now if somebody does have a problem or a question, but that's another resolution I would ask everybody to pass tonight. And also the 2020-048 Fannin and Deagle agreement, which is the culmination of quite a lot of work to solve the issues with the Fannin and Deagle properties. I'm very happy to have that in front of council tonight as a resolution. My thanks to Mr. Zetz, who had to correct the record up like 11 times. So he put a lot of work in on that, and I'm very grateful for that. I'd like to talk a little bit about, we had a meeting with the directors about the COVID situation and Licking County going red. For most of the directors and the people, I would say that most of it is a tighter mask-based solution to the problem. I will say that our street departments have proactively gone in a one individual, one vehicle mode to help prevent any spread. That's not 100% foolproof, but I think that everybody there is pulling their own. I do not see any other significant changes that would come our way unless we would move to the purple. I think that we're all fairly serious about wearing our masks when we're talking to the public. That has been in place since Mr. Chirac had this job. If you're within the public and you can't back and socially distance, you know, all our guys are doing that. If we went to purple, we would probably again look at remote, remote if you're Canadian, work perhaps from home. We would also probably look at some temperature taking and logging of staff. We might even look at some of the field people moving into shifts, so that if we did get contamination within a shift, we didn't lose all of our resources. But all that would come about, and we would have that conversation if it moved to purple. Happy to answer any questions about that. I'm kind of running through here, so when I get done, anybody can ask me anything about anything I talk about here. So I want to let council know that we did conduct interviews for the mayor's court clerk. We had 13 originals. That was cut to 7, and we pretty much interviewed the cream of the crop at 3. They were all excellent. I can tell you I'm probably going to make the decision tomorrow. I did interview in conjunction with Kip Kelsey, who asked more court-based questions. I asked more administrative city questions. It was a great interview, and any one of the 3, frankly, I think would make an excellent clerk. They all had court experience. I think our big fear was that we were gonna get people who, not to slag anybody, but you know, who used to do something else and were looking for a career change. And so they thought this would be good. Now, they all have courtroom experience, some with our own officers, one with our own officers, one with another one with our software, very familiar with our software, and the third one who was actually a bailiff, who could slide into a bailiff role if we needed, and have Jess Cumbo act as the clerk in an emergency. So when I say it was a tough decision, I'll probably make that decision tomorrow and let council know. Finally, I want to talk a little bit about the pool. On Friday, I stopped out and I talked to the managers at the pool, talked to them about, we have not seen great numbers coming into the pool. That worries me. I think on Friday, we also talked a little bit more about seeing more water loss from the leak. And so I had come prepared tonight. I actually asked them not to schedule anybody for tomorrow. Friday, I had not heard what the county red COVID situation, how that was going to affect. So I wasn't sure if there was going to be, everybody that is inside the pool has to have a mask, or, which I would think would pretty much render it, nobody was gonna sit in the heat in a mask inside the pool. That's not necessarily the case. I think the only major impact, after talking to Chad Brown from the Lincoln County Health Department this morning, is just the general concept of people not wanting to come out, and that's already a problem. So I had come wholly prepared tonight to talk to council about shutting the experiment down. I'm anxious to hear. I had a great conversation today with Mr. Walther. I actually have talked to most of council about it, but I was hoping for a round robin discussion where questions could be asked and answered, and you guys can get my recommendation at this point is, I don't see it getting any better, but I'm also cognizant of the fact that council wants to keep it open. So I would encourage any discussion that you guys, and gals, sorry, can give me vis-a-vis this issue. And that's the last for my report. So I'm happy to answer any questions and possibly enter into the pool conversation. I talked as long as I could, because it's really nice to have the mask off. But with that said, I'll throw it open to any questions, and then we can have a full discussion, or we can go right into it.
Would you reiterate to council that we stress to that person that may be taking the mayor's court clerk position that they will also be doing some PR work as far as making sure that when Jess isn't here, that they're handling
No, that's a great point, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Indeed, it's more than just PR work, they're gonna be handling administrative tasks in the front of the office. I'm a big believer that if you walk in, you should see somebody. Frankly, without Tanya there, sometimes everybody upstairs is busy doing something, and I don't like it when people walk in and ring the bell and nobody comes up and sees them immediately. I feel we're customer service oriented. This position would be answering phones when a whole coordinated effort between the front of the building, probably Alan Lanier, who sits up, we both sit up there, and certainly myself. That we would, Jess and this individual would coordinate their lunches, phone call stuff. I expect cross-training, just as we cross-train Jess on the clerk system, I would expect to cross-train that individual to help at the front of the office.
My beliefs also. Anything else on that topic? You're making that decision tomorrow?
I am.
Questions on anything else?
Well, if I get to remove this mask, I'll ask a question.
Okay.
Tim, I just want to tell you, thank you very much for your time today to talk about the pool. Obviously, something I'm very passionate about with that pool and the parks. I think that there are a few steps that we talked about a little bit today, even to some temporary eradication or reduction of leakage that could happen with some caulking or some marine putty in the cracks that were found by the American Leak detection people. I think that's a rather easy thing. I would equate that to Alan fixing some potholes or Chris fixing a leak in a service. So I think that could be done if we wanted to try to go do that. Try to slow down the leaks. No, I don't think it'll fix them, but certainly try to hold them back a little bit. Additionally, I would throw out some ideas that we talked about today, which would maybe the idea that the city could actually take cash at the cash rather than maybe step back just a second. Maybe change some protocol on how people can enter the pool and maybe make it a little more easy for the people to use it. I think we have some patrons of the pool and have had patrons in the past that may not be computer savvy. It is difficult. It was difficult to sign up for the pool originally, to schedule your. I don't know if anybody on council has tried, but it was challenging initially. I know that being down there, I've been down there several times. I've heard people concerned about not being able to use credit cards at the gate or not being able to process credit cards at that point. So those kind of things, I'm just hopeful that, and with Mr. Crawford not here, I think that there may be some items that he may have for ideas to keep the pool open. I assume you've talked with him. And if he has any, I would love to hear what he may have to maybe encourage or increase the community participation in the pool. Maybe how can we make it easier? How can we market it maybe a little differently? Those would be my ideas. I hate to abandon the ship, or you said the experiment. Certainly, it's a tough year. There's no doubt about it. It's a tough year for everybody that's dealing with COVID. It's a tough year for people that aren't working and with kids at home. And the pool does give them the opportunity if they can. I believe my personal belief is if they can utilize the pool entry easily, maybe that might help a little bit more, in my opinion. Additionally, what I saw on Saturday down there was a pool full of people, and Sunday also, until it rained, of course. Today they had a full sheet, or nearly full sheet, at the pool. So, I mean, there may be a corner that's being turned. I don't know that. I can't promise that, and I don't think there's anybody here that can say there's a foolproof plan to increase the people there. But we're really talking about 3 weeks of additional pool patronage operation. And if maybe there's some ways that we can look to slow down the leaks. We have them identified. We know where they are. So maybe we can look at that, roll up our sleeves, and figure out how to try to keep that pool open. That's my personal opinion.
Well, I can, I'll give everybody else a chance to talk. I'd like to answer some of what Andy said there. Originally, we did not take cash because, we were dedicated to the concept of how people registered to come into the pool. It's how most people do it. I totally agree. There are people that live on my own street that fit the category that you spoke about. But there was also promises of contact tracing, and sometimes that we like to have the people in the computer. So I did back that choice. I don't know if that is something we'd be willing to change. To give a little bit of a perspective, I think we're somewhere at a quarter of what we thought we would be. So as long as council kind of has a grip on that, we've taken in the high 5,000s. That includes the walk-ups and let me also say, I am a believer that the credit card swipe should work at the pool, and we'll look for immediately attempting to make sure that, because that is another milestone where somebody might not feel comfortable giving their credit card number to somebody at the pool. Totally get that. But with that said, we're somewhere in that quarter range for where we thought we might be. And we didn't think we were gonna be at 70 a day. So, when I look back over, you're right, on Sunday, there were 30 people at the pool, twice, roughly, 60 people. That's versus 140 for 2 full sessions. Saturday was hot and busy, as you pointed out. It was a little bit better, it was 80 people. So we do have on weekends decent attendance at the pool. By the same token, on Thursday the 16th, we were at 20 people. Now, it rained in the afternoon. We kind of thought that might happen, but there are some days when there are even less than that, there are 11. And I want to make sure that if council chooses to move forward, and it sounds like, I get it, it sounds like, well, it's only 3 weeks. Well, that's 3 weeks of time possibly not paying salaries that we could work on the leak. I am dedicated to trying to fix the leak. If we move forward, council's option is to keep it open, to work on fixing the leak, because it makes no sense to just sit in a ship that's filling up with water if you can find a way to fix it. With that said, that's another cost probably, even if it was just in putty and we all went in there and stuffed it in the cracks. I don't think that's probably what we'll do, but that every time we talk about different options, so there have been some options suggested that maybe we would make it $10 for the whole day. And we might get more people in, we might get 70 people in for the day, and in the end, that would be probably a plus over many days. However, that still comes at a commensurate loss. And I wanna make sure that everybody is 100% is down if that's what everybody chooses to do. I think we had a very long and good discussion today, you and I, about a variety of different options. And I'm kind of open to anything. I think Lanier, when he comes back, would be open to it as well. I'm just telling you that I don't know that any of those suggestions are going to immediately send it to 70 or even 50 a session for the remaining portion of the year. So that's why, and then of course there was the issue with the COVID stuff, that going red, and I wasn't sure if that was going to affect an immediate shutdown just from the health department. They did get back in touch with me today, and that's not the case. They're still socially distanced out there, and they feel that our plan is okay. So I'm happy to answer questions from others and see if I can take the temperature more from other people.
Mr. Epperson?
I agree with Andy on the fact that if we can try to slow down some leaks, I think that would be beneficial. I'm looking at this as, yes, it's 3 weeks. I'm trying to balance service to the public, but also understand that it is coming at a cost to the city. Do you have any idea on what total costs would be in 3 weeks versus losses?
Well, therein lies another interesting thing, because I'm still trying to grab exactly what our water costs are gonna be, and also, there may be times, and this has been pointed out as well, when we need to send some lifeguards home. So there may be cost savings associated with it. I can tell you that when Lanier and I and Jamie sat down, we basically calculated the season, salary at about 21,000. Right now, the money that we've taken in will pay for about our water. We may get more people, and that may change. We may find days where we limit our management or lifeguard staff. That might get us some savings. But that's the best barometer I could probably give you now. And I think that kind of tells you, if the water leak were to stop, but starting on, our current water bill is 4,018, and that was July 1st, as of July 1st. And we brought in 56, roughly 5,600, 5,700.
So that water bill covered when to when?
I'm sorry?
What was the time range on that?
That covered April to January. That did not cover people splashing about. That was up to the open, essentially. But that did include the filling of the pool. And it did include a give back, which was proper by the utilities department, thank you, Mr. Chirac, of sewer. Because if you have a leak, obviously, you're not gonna be paying for sewer because it's not going to the sanitary, it's going someplace else.
So based on that, we can expect maybe a ballparking $20,000 loss?
Boy, that's a tough.
It's the, and that's what, I know it's a tough question, and that's what I'm trying to balance. Is it worth the expense over the next 3 weeks when we're looking in different departments and areas to cut money based on COVID income and stuff too? So I would like to have this discussion, and maybe bounce around the room, see what everybody else thinks, but.
Are you saying that there's 20,000 left in the season, or are you saying 20,000 for the whole season? I just want to make sure I understood them.
If the calculations are correct, I think that the entire season, the salaries would be 20.
We're halfway, okay.
Mr. Lee?
Yeah, I'm just trying to take this all in because obviously I want to keep the pool as well. And it's that balance, like Dustin said, the public service versus the loss to the city. I guess kind of where I'm at after talking to Tim today and listening, I think that the leak getting worse, that concerns me. Obviously that's a cost and it's something that needs repaired. So I'm kind of thinking maybe that middle ground for me and me only is, could we try and fix it? How quick could that be done? Like Mr. Walther said, whatever putty, I have no knowledge of that. But if that doesn't improve and it continues to get worse, I feel like that to me is where we decide, hey, let's pull the plug on this. We tried. Not only do we have COVID, we've got a giant leak that's costing us thousands of dollars and getting worse. So let's invest that money into getting the leak fixed, and then we open up next season and hopefully we have 0 leaks. So I don't know, I guess Chris or Tim, I know Lanier's not here obviously, but how quickly could we try and repair it, and how quickly would we know if it worked? Or Andy. Yeah.
I'm happy to speculate on this.
Andy's got some experience with.
Because I've actually done it. It's marine putty, and we've identified 287 feet of area that needs to have putty put into the crack between the stainless steel wall and the concrete floor. That caulk was deteriorated and essentially is letting the water, obviously caulk is there for a reason, right?
Right.
So the marine putty's essentially $8 a tube. You probably need about 20 tubes of it to go that far. So it's a minor that somebody has to get in the pool, but you have to actually shove it down into the crack. And the crack is only 4.5 feet down because there's a shelf, 4 feet down because there's a shelf all the way around the pool. So you can do it with water in the pool. I've done it. I think if we did it immediately, Chris would be able to tell immediately. And actually, you can monitor almost daily, that day, to see if you're seeing the same drop in the pool elevation.
Well, that makes it easy then to me is once we try it, and if it works, great, let's, keep going and take a look where we are in 2 weeks from now at the next council meeting. If it doesn't, then I think that we gotta make a tough call, and my call, or my vote for that would be to cut our losses at that point if we can't fix the leak. Or at least stop, not maybe stop it, but keep it from getting worse.
That's just a Band-Aid.
Because we went from 15,000 gallons to what, we're up to 21, is my math right on this?
16 is what we did before anybody was in the pool, and last Thursday to Friday it was 26.
And that was in what, 3 weeks? It's gone from 16 to 26?
Yes, the 16 was nobody at the pool using anything, it was just the pool staying full. So-
See, that's a big concern for me, so that's where I'm at. I think, I wanna keep it open, but,
I will point out that once you get people there, restrooms are running,
yeah.
it's not all leak.
Not a cannonball.
There's an off, but it's, I'm sure it's not, a whole lot of evaporation.
Is that reasonable to see if we could try and do that this week and find out? If it's that quick of a.
It depends on what we decide, the route we decide to go. There's a company that I think would probably do it for us. Again, everything we're talking about is cost on one side versus and I don't know if, or, yes. The answer is just like the credit card machine. If we identify somebody and we wanna try to get them in here. Now, I'll say yes, but if I call them up and they go, oh, we can't be there till October, then obviously that comes with a caveat and an asterisk. But I have no problem with getting, there aren't many companies that do it, by the way. Andy said he's done it. I don't know that we're also, professionally, I also don't know if I'd like to move towards having a professional lead person fix the pool just because that's.
Just to reiterate, this is a Band-Aid, don't get anything,
Right.
Mike's obviously, he's absolutely right, we're gonna shove some marine putty down in the crack and stop it from accepting water, and that's gonna slow down the leak, but it will have to be recaulked, there's no ifs, ands, or buts about it, and you can't recaulk it while there's water in it, so this is a, I don't wanna call it Flex Seal, but it's something like, you're putting, that was not a promotional ad in any way.
Commercials,
It was not a commercial in any way, but we're putting some putty down in there. And
But when you say, okay, we put some marine putty in for temporary, that's the Band-Aid, but you said, but eventually it's gonna need recaulk. That's the permanent solution for the leaks, is just to recaulk?
part of it.
There's no excavating,
per
there's
the-
no tearing apart? Do we know that for sure?
I don't know.
Okay.
I think we have the report from the professional company, and they said that's what they have identified. I think anybody that's been associated with the pool often talks about, we fix one leak and another pops up. It's the nature of a pool, and it's the nature of an old pool.
There were a couple skimmers that were previously fixed under the YMCA that are showing leaks again. So those would probably have to be recut and redone, but you would do that after the pool would close in September, or whatever the case may be.
Gotcha.
What is the cost, just remind, to fix it correctly? What was the cost? Do we
It
know
was-
that?
I don't know.
It was just a little bit north of $10,000 is what the proposal was. And that's my,
I thought it was like, 10, 13.
10 or
something like that.
11,000, yeah, as I remember, yeah.
Somewhere. So-
something in that ballpark.
So to Tom's point, I do think that I would support giving it a chance with the Band-Aid fix, but I also, on the flip side, to balance that out, I think we also need to look at, like you said, days when we can reduce staff. If we look at it and only 10 people are signed up, maybe we consider closing for the day, or at least for that session. So I think there's a little bit of give and take on that to help reduce the cost expense on the backside.
I appreciate that. The citizens that are watching on Facebook are getting to see a good give and take. This happens all the time between us. One of the concerns there is, you tell a life, you have a few bad days and you tell somebody you can't be in here, you run the risk of losing them permanently. And so that's always in the back of our head. I don't think that'll happen, but it's always in the back of our head when you say, send them home. You also lose some momentum. Maybe somebody comes up and thinks the pool isn't open anymore. That's not dire, But those are the things that we think about. I appreciate the comment.
But yeah, I think if we start to see that trend though, then I think that's pretty much, that might be our answer to pull the plug, so to speak.
And if we did pull the plug, I mean, that's just sooner we can get on fixing the
Right.
problem.
And I don't think we should wait too long. I honestly think 2 weeks might be too long. I mean, if we could notice a change within, 4 days to a week.
Oh, I agree.
If it's done anything, because 2 weeks, you might as well go one more week and finish it out, so.
Actually, I believe the next council meeting is on the 5th? Is that of August? Third, I'm sorry, the 3rd, and I believe that it's the pool's scheduled to be open 2 weeks past that, so. I said 3 weeks, that might have been incorrect, might be 4. So,
August 3rd.
Yeah, it is 4 weeks too. I think I actually mentioned that, I apologize.
Anything else for Tim on the pool or mayor's court or what else? Let's see,
I think we can ask resolution questions when the resolutions come up.
yes, sir.
Yeah, I support keeping the pool open. And I talked to Mrs. Carter, who's not here, I talked to her this afternoon before I left the office. And not that I'm proxy voting for her, but would like to keep the pool open, see how it goes, if we can make some repairs. She, as with me, she shares the same major concern that I do, is that we don't want to get into a fiscal jam with the pool. We want to keep it open if we can, but that's the concern that she and I discussed at some length, so.
Yeah, with everything else shut down and closed, and I would hope that we could do everything we can, and it sounds like we are, so.
Look, that's the feel-good portion to this. The other side of it is, if you look on the agenda right after me, is somebody that's gonna talk to you about our fiscal situation. That's always in the back of my mind as well. And so I understand, there's not a lot of normalcy in this world right now, and this is a piece of normalcy, and that's good. By the same token, we're talking about funds in a time when directors are being asked to identify significant cuts, and that's always something to be considered.
Okay, thank you, Tim. Mr. Nicholson.
Thank you, Mayor. I was on vacation last week, so I didn't get a chance to give you guys a report. Couple things, he kind of stole my thunder. The auditor state contacted me, not you, Tim, but Nick did. Contacted me last week with the RFP process. That's all run through the auditor state's office. It used to be, and I think it still is, it ends up being a score of 100 points, and I get 5 points that I can apply if I want to weight it one way. So it used to be back in the day, the city had a lot more influence on which auditors of those bidding. We really don't have a whole lot of influence. They are all pre-approved by the auditor state's professional review standards. So at the end of the day, the AOS, these IPA firms audit under the auspices of the AOS. The AOS right now has our CAFR. Even though they've blessed it and it's officially done, it's not really done until the AOS has done their desk review and they formally bless it. I've never heard of anybody, them bouncing anything or changing anything at that point though. So we will be going out for an RFP process. I'm glad they're doing it in the early summer as opposed to, I've had it in the past, in a previous life, I had them contacting me in February to offer an RFP for the previous year's audit, which was a little bit challenging. So I'm glad they're on top of it. And as Nick indicated, they would still be eligible to bid. They've been here 6 years. 10 years is the outside that they'll let you do with any one audit firm. So if we were to stick with Julian Group as an example, it's a 3-year contract, then we would be done. But I'll continue to keep you guys updated as we go through this process as far as that's concerned. Finally, after a long last of dealing with the federal government, we have our DUNS number officially reactivated, so we were able to formally apply through the Ohio Budget and Management, OPM, for the CARES Act funding, the grants that they have out there. According to Licking County, step back here, the distribution to the counties at that level follows the local government funds. So our percentage of the county's local government fund distribution is the percentage of the CARES Act funds that we would get. The number I saw was somewhere between $55,000 and $60,000. Unfortunately, we don't get as much as of the local government funds as we probably should, because when it was established, we were a village with a very small population. So that's how it was established, and it's not really been updated since that time. It's $60,000 that I will definitely take, if at all possible. Tim and I have a webinar through the OML on Wednesday. They finally have given us some, the AOS and the other bodies involved are finally going to give us direction on what it is we can actually spend it on. I mean, the clearly obvious things are all the PPE, the hand sanitizer, the plastic shields, anything else we had to buy or do, signage, what have you, to be in compliance and be safe. The question is, what personnel costs can we cover, if any? So we're going to look to see where we can make it fit. When we do get the distribution, we basically have to document and justify everything. Anything that's unspent prior to December, I believe it's the 13th is the deadline, we have to cut a check back to the state for any unspent funds.
We can spend.
Well, we hope. We hope we can find a use for everything. So we're hoping that this webinar on Wednesday will give us some good information on what we can use that for. Finally, as Tim indicated, I'm going to give you an update on the fiscal condition. I have income tax reports from Rita through July 13th, so it didn't pick up the last 2 days in that settlement. So there's going to be a little bit of a hiccup there. We'll see more at the next settlement, but based on through the end of June, through July. If I look at that using the same metrics that I did before, the number has grown to about 1.7, just under $1.7 million, and that's about a 27% decline. So it's gone from 1.3 to 1.4 to 1.6 to 1.7. I'm hopeful that, we're getting close to what the new run rate really is. So that's a 2020 impact. The concern I have is, the fiscal impact on 21 through 25. I reached out to a number of my colleagues today, just kind of seeing where their head was at with their income tax collections, what they're doing in their projections to see if I'm off base or anything. And we're all scratching our heads because this is uncharted territory. But what I've envisioned is the decline, this kind of low collection rate continuing probably for the first half of 21. And that's what I'm building into my revenue projections. And then a slower recovery coming out of it. You could be pleasantly surprised that, vaccines developed in October, and by January 1, it's all sunshine and rainbows. But I can't build that into the revenue projections for budget purposes. The last thing I want to do is be able to commit to where we can spend this money on these road projects or hiring the staff only to find out that we're going to be short. So prudence dictates that we take a conservative approach. But again, I've reached out to my colleagues, and I've made contact with a couple of them today. I'm waiting to hear back from a couple of others. But generally, we're all pretty much seeing the same kind of things. We have, as I told Tim earlier today, we have, being a better community, it's a double-edged sword. We don't get the revenues from the businesses, which would be great to have the withholdings. But because we don't, the thing that's really muddying the waters for these guys is the net profits. Because if a company has a horrible year this year and they have a net operating loss, that can now be carried forward for 5 years. It didn't used to be able to be carried forward. So they're having a tougher time gauging. If you don't get any revenue from a company because it has net operating loss, you don't know if that's going to be zero for this year only or for the next 2, 3, 5 years. It's difficult for them to forecast. So on the one hand, it sucks not getting the revenue, but on the other hand, it makes my life a little easier because it's just individuals' withholdings on their paychecks, basically. So, but I hope to have, we'll be working on the revenue projections yet this week, and we're making those updates. And with that sunshine message, I'm done.
Any questions? Yes.
One question, just a couple observations. And Jamie and I did have a conversation with
Oh, yeah.
the folks who we're looking at to do the internal control testing, or whatever you want to call it, the review charter that's required in the charter. I think we're going to anticipate having them come out sometime in August. Tony, I can't pronounce his last name.
It starts with an IL, and I don't know how you
It's
pronounce it.
IE something.
Yeah.
I have to ask him sometime. I'm a little embarrassed. He's a super nice guy, but he's been working from home, and he sounded very anxious to get out and or have somebody from his office come here. I think he's based in Pittsburgh though, but I think he said he would drive. But anyway, so we'll look for that as part of as we did with Julian Group, to come out and talk about what they can do. I think I passed out the scope of work. I think I said the proposed scope of work. I know I sent that to the finance committee folks. I'm not sure if I sent it to everybody else, but I'll try to get it out. A couple observations on the local government fund from the CARES Act. If the government's experience is anything like the private sector experience, it's a wild ride. My conversations with other attorneys, or obviously business owners, about their experiences with the Paycheck Protection Program and with EIDL from the SBA, it's all over the map. The timing, people apply at the same time, and then somebody gets it the next day, and then another person doesn't get it for weeks. I got an EIDL, and then a couple days later, I got another $1,000 from the SBA. I have no idea what it's for. They just put it in my bank account. I have no idea what it was. I didn't apply for it. I don't know. So maybe that'll happen. We'll get some Christmas bonus money. So just it's all over the place with that. So hopefully we can get something and we can spend it because we're going to need it. And my conversations with other folks that I know who are council members around the region, the same thing. They're wrestling the same problems with different cities. It's the same thing. We just don't know what's going to happen. So everyone's being very prudent. So thanks, Jamie.
Anything else for Jamie? Thank you, sir.
Yep.
Welcome back.
Thank you.
Chris?
Thank you, Mayor. Real quick, going back to the pool, Mr. Walter and Mr. Lee's comment, we can do a meter reading 9 o'clock in the morning. Within 2 days after repair is made, we should have a pretty good idea on how much it has made a difference on leak loss. So pretty easy to tell that. We had a pre-con meeting for the WRF upgrade process. They're scheduled to mobilize September 8th. Substantial portion of the project is supposed to be done June of next year, with everything finished by July of next year. The contractor's estimate of actual bypass time is around 67 days, which is much less than the 240 allowed for in the contract. So that's an optimistic time frame, but the less amount of time we can bypass, the better off we'll be. So I'm excited to get that going. Because of that project coming up, we're trying to make as much room in the tanks as we can. So we are pressing a lot more through the biosolids press than we normally do. That is in anticipation of using the tanks that hold the biosolid sludge to hold our seed sludge, so that we'll have bugs to repopulate the plant when we go back online again. Because we had to process so much more through the press, we do not have enough room in our storage building to make it all the way to October to do land application. So we are going to have about 4 semi-loads go to the landfill just to make room for that. EPA requirements are you have to have 6 months of storage, and that's it on site. So we're just going to buy a little time by taking some to the landfill. Got a new social media informational outreach post that goes over what the WRF upgrade is going to be, a little bit on how much it costs and how we're funding that. Working on the CIP budget with finance director and the administrator. And the last thing I have is a staple in my reports lately. It's the leak section. 7845 Beecher Road. We had the bolts come off of a watch valve. They just rotted off, and basically the whole top of the valve came off. It was Saturday night around 10:30, 11 o'clock. Had to shut down the main to do the repair. The repair was done. We were able to directionally flush it, so we didn't have to issue a boil alert. Chlorine levels were good. We took back T samples. Precautionary wise, after that, they both came back good. Because of the valving for that leak, we caused the saddle to pop off 659 carryback, which is right around the corner. Took about a day for that to surface, for us to find it. We went out and replaced the saddle and the service line at that location, and that day, as one of the guys was out in the city, he came across a wet spot in the road at 1418 Kelsey Jane. We had to pull a new service line for that. We also have another one scheduled for Wednesday of this week, another service line that's failed. So there's not really a lot changed in our operations. This is just unlucky, but there has been a lot of leaks this summer. Usually they happen in the cold, so I'm hoping that we're getting them all out of the way where the weather's nice and February won't be a disaster. Outside of that, I don't have anything else. Be happy to answer any questions.
Anything for Chris? Like your blurb today on the webpage.
You like it?
Yes.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, sir. Mr. Haynes?
Thank you, Mayor. Several things tonight. First off, starting with intersections, resolution 2020-049. This is to redo the signal at Watkins and Broad, which would include basically everything but the signal poles, all the controller cabinet, the wiring, and the new signal heads. Also adding detection for the east and westbound left turn lanes on Broad Street. The turn lanes are there, but there's no protected phase. We've had some issues with the signal over the past few months. I think it's been on flash, I think maybe 5 times. So we're trying to address that situation. Part of that is due to some grounding, and we're not sure exactly where that is. So the approach would be to just replace everything. We had planned for either this year or next year to do that. It wasn't specifically built into this year's budget. Speaking of the budget, however, we still had the savings that I've shown previously. 2 of the culvert replacements that we've done this year have come in about $10,000 under what we had planned for. So there's an additional $20,000 of savings. This will be using $50,000 of that, so we'd be $30,000 less, which still puts us right around that 15% savings that I had planned for. I'll pause to see if there's any questions for that, unless we want to address that specifically at the resolution time, if there's any questions.
Is Spenco the company that's doing most of our culvert work?
Yes. And since you asked that question, they're on Cable Road today. That culvert got replaced today. We're putting concrete in there, so there's a good chance that'll be open back up on Friday. And then we're planning to start Graham Road, which is just east of Summit, on Thursday, 48-inch culvert there. So that will be closed over the weekend. We'll put out public notice on that one tomorrow.
And use the signs?
So we've currently got the message boards on Cable Road, and then we're getting them from jump to one from the other, but we're putting out signs tomorrow that will read, that'll be closed for the specific dates, and we'll also put that on the website and the Facebooks. Switching back to intersections, Summit and Broad, we made the application to ODOT for funding on that intersection improvement project. They came back and said that they would not fund the full project as we had proposed it to them. They came back and said, well, what about a phased approach? They'll replace the signal, but not add the additional pavement and not add turn lanes on Summit Road, but at least give us the protected phasing, put mast arms in, and at least make that improvement, see if it does anything as a phased approach. We went back to them and said, well, yeah, we'll take what money you can give us, but would you also be willing to do a little bit more? We're waiting on a response from them, but it does look like there's a good chance that we will get some funding for that project, and I'll keep you posted on that one. Finally, on intersections, the Broad Street downtown corridor, where we're looking to applications for not only MORPC but with ODOT as well. The pre-screen application was due this past Friday, so we did get that submitted, and I'll keep you posted on where we're at with that one. The last thing I have is the streets program. That has been going very well. I know Mr. Walth, you asked a question last time about the pavement repair. We ended up doing no pavement repair. When we milled the surfaces, everything was in really good condition. We did put that back, some of that money back into asphalt for doing scratch courses and leveling courses to kind of seal up some of the cracks that were there and prevent them from reflecting.
You're talking about Mill?
Mill Street, we did a lot of leveling there, but on Pat Haven, we actually had a little bit of scratch course, up Creek Road, Blacks Road. I think the only one we didn't do a scratch course, which is just a real thin layer of asphalt to kind of fill in the cracks and prevent them from coming through. I think the only one we didn't do was Melody. But we did have some, so even with that, we had a good amount of savings on the project. Havens Corners in Mink, that was the Shelley Company, Mayor, I think you'd specifically asked about that, where the radius isn't appropriate and people are having a hard time making that turn and making ruts. That was the Shelley Company project, who's doing this project as well. So I got a representative from Shelley Company out there, and we looked at that. ODOT didn't catch it, and ODOT had pretty much said, well, the project's over, too bad, so sad. The Shelley Company did say they'd work with us, and they said, hey, if you'll pay for the asphalt, we'll do that, which is at least some savings for us. So some of the savings from the streets program plan to put to that, which will only be a couple $1,000s of that. Finally, the rest of the savings, idea was brought to me by Mr. Fragel to chip seal the rest of Mill Street. And I think that would be a good use of that money. It's starting to crack now, so we'd have to crack seal it, and we'll probably be dirt patching it within the next couple of years, if not. But if I could take some of that money and put it back into crack sealing, chip sealing, and potentially doing a double chip seal if we have the money, it would still be within this year's budget. So I wouldn't be asking for any additional money, just trying to use what we have in savings to get a little bit more done for the future. Happy to answer any questions.
Back to intersections for a second, Summit and Broad. So if ODOT is gonna help us with some things, but could you do one without the other? We couldn't put mast arms up and put lights without doing paving, right? We just have to find that money to do our own paving?
So that's a possibility, yes. For them, we went back and said, well, we'd want to acquire all the right-of-way to get all the pavement. So at least in their part, we would be acquiring all the right-of-way. We would put the mast arms where they would need to be for when we have all that pavement. And then we'd just be waiting to see if we can afford the pavement, or if it doesn't get the results that we're hoping for, maybe ODOT would fund the second phase in a future year.
Anything else for Alan?
Mayor,
Yes.
Alan, I just want to say Mill Street looks great.
Good to hear.
I haven't got any feedback yet, but I'm sure it will be, but looks really, really good.
Good to hear. I'm
Yeah,
very happy.
I've already turned myself in. I was doing 42.
What can you say?
And
The mayor was speeding,
Yeah.
I saw him.
Yeah.
Maybe the
Go ahead,
chip seal
Andy.
will help with that.
Maybe a few more speed limit signs there. Two questions for you, and obviously, I think the paving program has done very well this year, and thank you for following up on the undercut issue. Appreciate that. Across the street, we've got a subdivision that's going on right now, and just looking from Broad Street, again, just looking over there and watching them do some stuff. Notice that there isn't a lot of erosion control measures in place, and I didn't know if you or Prime, I assume Prime is our inspector on that?
Correct.
If they could look into that to see that we're following the protocol necessary for the erosion issues in that area,
Yes, sir.
that would be great.
We'll double check that tomorrow.
Yep. And then secondly, down on Mill Street, speaking of a wonderfully paved road, there is an area that they're filling right adjacent to the I'm going to call it the log cabin
Yes.
there by the bridge. I would guess, and I have not looked at any FEMA maps or anything to see if that's a floodplain in that area, but my guess would be that it is. And two things: one, no erosion issues, no erosion control issues against the creek, and two, typically you don't, unless you have a permit, unless there's some type of LOMAR or some kind of permit to do that. I understand that that's not a city job, correct?
That's correct.
Good. I don't know what the protocol is to find out who's doing it or what's going on there, but it seems to me like that's probably in a floodplain area.
Okay, and that's a private residence, I believe, that you're speaking of, correct?
Well, I don't know that it's a residence. The log cabin is a Boy Scouts.
I think they own that too. I think the Boy Scouts
Okay.
own that piece.
Okay, so I think it's private property at least that we're talking about. So I'll check with Mr. Fulton and see if we have any permit for a house or anything, and then we'll check the code to see. how
Right,
we
but just
would
bringing it
address
up so
that.
that we,
Appreciate
and
that.
actually, so they don't get themselves in trouble, quite frankly.
Indeed.
First of all, we don't get ourselves in trouble, but they don't get themselves in trouble. Thanks.
Yep.
Mrs. Carter asked me to remind you about Cable Road getting open and signs put up because of Looking Heights graduation Saturday.
Duly noted, it should be back open on Friday, so hopefully we won't even have a conflict, but if it's going to be, we will get that taken care of. Thank you.
Anything else?
Yeah, Alan, hearing lots of nice compliments about Pat Haven and other streets, echo the other comments, so it seems to be going really well. Were you able to follow up with some of the folks on, I don't want to say Melody, because that's not the right street.
Hickory?
Hickory, with some of the issues that they were having? Were you able to get,
So I've talked to a couple of the residents, but I think Mr. Hicken might have more information on that
Okay.
than I do.
all right,
Sure, I went out and met with them individually, walked through. I would say that is the tail end of the Oak Meadow project, for lack of a better term. They had some concerns about restoration and also some minor drainage questions. I've pledged to re-meet with them. Let's wait and see what the company that is doing the restoration does.
okay.
And then they're on my list to call this week just to let them know that we haven't forgotten.
Right.
And what the plan is moving forward. I met with them before I got a chance to talk with Alan, and then Alan and I formulated that plan, so.
Okay, good.
um,
And thanks for the intersection fix at Broad and Watkins. That thing breaks down all the time.
I'm looking forward to getting that going. Hopefully, it'll take a few months for lead time on equipment, but
Right.
if we can improve that, we'll get that in this year. And one other follow-up on Oak Meadow Drive, we have had some disagreement, I'd say, with the contractor on what final restoration should look like, so we're still working through that process. And that's probably gonna take a little bit of time yet to make sure we get that right, but we're working toward that end.
Well, final restoration should look like it was before you showed up. So if you come and throw gravel all over my mother-in-law's lawn, you should take it back out.
I would certainly agree.
I think also, I don't wanna jump into Alan's business, but when he talks about restoration as well, there's also some drainage and swale concerns on Oak Meadow.
Yeah, that comment's not a reflection on Alan, it's a reflection on the contractor.
I agree.
He came in there and he did his job, but he should be prepared to put it back the way it was, in my view. So,
Anything else for Alan? Yeah, thanks for not forgetting Havens Corner and Mink there. That was just gonna ruin our brand new road with people constantly driving off the edge and tearing it up, so thank you.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Fulton,
Thank you, Mayor. Would like to point out that Meyer Shank Racing will be, their plane manufacturing application will be heard by the Planning and Zoning Commission on August 5th. This is for the northeast corner of Etna Parkway and Refugee Road. Also, there was discussion about the Summit Road TIF. We reached out to Mr. Schwally to determine his interest and cost for repairing the TIF. He said that he would need to know how many parcels we were looking to include. That way he can give us a cost estimate of what that would be. Also, at the request of the Development Committee, we reached out to Connie Klima. She represents Coughlin, who own several parcels at the Summit and Broad intersection, to see her interest in contributing towards the TIF. Her question was, how much will that cost? So today, I went through and identified all the parcels potentially we could include in that TIF, and then I'll meet with Mr. Haynes and Mr. Hicken to finalize that list to get to Mr. Schwally, and then we can get that cost estimate. Aside from that, be happy to answer any questions.
so Alan and Scott, that could possibly give us the whole intersection, the if they kicked in and the TIF and all that stuff, that could do the paving, the mast arms and the lights, working with ODOT, is that what we're talking about?
With the TIF, that would be done over time, that whatever, if it's, for example, the old Summit Town restaurant is no longer there, that if they went in, TIF was in place, and someone was gonna build a new Summit Town restaurant, then for 15 years, tax generated by that restaurant would go into the TIF fund that could be then used, not only for that intersection, but anywhere along Summit Road. So it's more of a long-term versus, immediate.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Anything for Scott? Did you have
Wanna
something?
go first, Andy?
No, go ahead.
Scotty, where are we at with Tasco Square?
Tasla Square, they were trying to get their environmental plan. They had some issues with their contractor due to COVID and trying to figure out a few things. So they have until August 1st to come back with a finalized abatement plan. I wanted to give them, instead of extending it, I felt August 1st should give them plenty of time to come back and have something ready to go. Because at that point, we started in May, it'll be August, everything should be finalized. So August 1st is their deadline to give me an abatement plan.
So next meeting, you can bring us up to speed on where,
That's correct.
okay.
That's correct.
Perfect, thanks.
Mr. Walter?
Yep. Staying on the same location, the restaurant that's there in a trailer, the Oxby's. With their setup and everything in that parking lot, what permits did they need? Obviously, this is a little bit more than a food truck. I know we did the food truck several years ago, actually now. What permits were they required to get to set up there?
Mobile food vendor permit.
And so when the mobile food vendor permit starts, does that apply to a trailer that doesn't move? I mean, that is there
It's-
semi-permanently?
Yes, it still applies to that, and I'll have to, because I spoke with Jack about it, and they have a unique situation about how they move it and everything, and also with health department regulations, it's required to be completely removed from the site before it can come back. So they have a system, it looks like, from my understanding, they have a couple different versions of this, that they have a specified trailer come in that they can move it.
It has the IndyCar drop-down hydraulic jacks that lift
Okay.
the trailer up. They put a lift under it and take it away.
So that
and
makes sense.
Yep.
It looked a lot less movable
Yep.
than movable trailers.
It is mobile.
Yeah, that was
Okay.
my initial concern, but after speaking with Jack, it was, they have a very specific method on how they do that.
Okay. I have one other quick question.
Sure.
The car garage down
Yes.
here on Broad Street. They seem to be doing what the old car garage did previously, with cars parked all over the place, not in their parking spots and so forth. I know that when we had spoke about the conditional use application that they had put in, there were several conditions that you had meant that you were making sure that they complied with compared to the old car garage. Just pointing out that they seem to be in the same rut as the old car garage.
I'll have Mr. Blake stop by tomorrow.
Thank you very much.
Yep. Hundreds of cars, handicap spots full, blah, blah, blah.
Even
Same old
unlicensed
stuff.
cars, there's just and almost, I think they're the same cars that the old garage had there, but I don't know that for sure.
I'll have Mr. Blake stop by.
I think they did the old Earl Scheib paint
I
job.
think
They're
they
the
did the
same
old-
cars, yeah. Anything else? Yes, sir.
Scott, what is going on, if you've heard anything, with the apartments at Broad and Watkins? I noticed, I think that the farmer planted there, so I'm assuming that nothing,
They,
I thought it's
Mr.
gonna-
Heitmeyer won his appeal.
right, I know that, but.
So we received, their next step is construction plans, which we received just today.
Okay,
So they're moving forward with the process, so we have to review those. And once we get the construction plans finalized, pre-construction meeting, and then they're on the process to build.
okay, thanks.
Anything else? I just have a quick compliment. The owner of the Oxby's was very complimentary. He said anywhere else he works, he's usually waiting for the planning and zoning department to get back to him. We were actually waiting for him to get stuff, and he said he couldn't get it fast enough to you, and that was on him. So he could have opened up earlier and all that good stuff. So kudos to your department, sir.
Thank you, I'll pass that along to Mr. Kunzman.
Yep. Is there anything from Lanier?
Yeah, I'd like to give a
Okay.
little bit of an update. I wanted everybody to know that.
Lanier Junior, go right ahead.
Liberty Park, which is over the Taylor Glen subdivision, started their, an upgrade, including a walking path and also some items in the woods, play gym type items in the woods. In the spirit of working together, my thanks to Alan and his staff for going out and making sure that the compaction was indeed done on the base of the path. It is an asphalt path, and it also is an extension to the parking lot there. If you are familiar with the neighborhood, it was just a big field, and we're moving forward with that. Everything else will probably take place after Lanier's return, but he asked me if I would make sure that everybody knew that project had kicked off, and I met Mrs. Carter out there to explain to her what she was looking at, although she already knew. She'd need my explanation. But just to take her through exactly what was happening and talk to her a little bit about it. We attempted to knock on a couple of doors. I would usually have liked to do just that, knock on a couple doors and say, hey, starting Monday in your backyard. But the company started a little earlier than we thought. Mrs. Croner and I attempted to do that, but nobody was home. It was 9 o'clock on a Tuesday or something, so, but at least, she got to see the site, and, I think everybody out there should be quite excited. There were several citizens just flat out stopped and said, hey, what's going on? And we told them, and they were excited. So it's an increase of the trail program and connecting the different parks on the far west side.
Tim, I just wanted to mention in the parks, I was out actually looking at the cut that was done for the beginning of that construction process. And I noticed over the weekend that there were contractors parked in the parking lot that weren't the contractors working on the project itself. And I didn't know whether the chief or anybody monitors these parking lots like overnight and such, so that this was a big triaxle with some lawn mowing equipment on it and all kinds of stuff parked in the park there at Liberty. I just wanted to mention that it seems like we're seeing more of the just more of the residents parking in the parks and staying there overnight. And I just wanted to, if we can track that down and let them know that they can't do that, that'd be great.
Will do.
Thanks.
Thank you.
And actually, on that note, Chief, if you'd, there's a travel trailer, big mobile home travel trailer sitting at Pataskala Square with its curtains closed, and it's been there for 4 days, so let's check that one out, please.
Will do.
It's actually in the Pataskala Square shopping center lot, not Washington, so I know that falls into probably private property, but somebody's camping out. Anything else for Lanier? All right, Chief Brooks.
Thank you, Mayor. Just have one quick thing. Received the grant for body armor through the Attorney General's office. It's a $2,011.50 grant. Our portion is 25%, so spend about $500 and get roughly 5 or 6 vests.
Good.
That's all I have. I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Anything for Chief? Yes.
Chief, I've had a lot of citizens contact me in various ways about this question. I think I know the answer, but I would like to get it out in public. What's the city's response or position, the police department's position on quote-unquote enforcing the governor's mask mandate for the county?
It's a tough position for us because, I mean, we want to make sure everybody's safe, but, you know, we personally, we just don't have the manpower to go out and enforce these. I mean, I get it, it only takes 15, 20 minutes to deal with somebody not wearing a mask, but if you cite them and they're persistent, you know, you can either have to take them to jail or go through the court process, and it's rather lengthy and costly. And I just, especially in light of our budget situation, it's just a tough position for us to be in. I'm not of the mindset yet where, you know, we're not going to respond. We will respond, and hopefully we can talk some sense into people, but hopefully that's where it ends.
I know Sheriff Thorpe put out a press release that don't call 911 for people who are. If you see somebody who's not wearing a mask, so I think you would respond if you, like, from a business owner who was having a problem with a patron who wouldn't leave, who wasn't wearing a mask, who wouldn't leave the store or the restaurant or whatever. Obviously, that's an issue for business owners.
Well, it's a couple different issues, as you would know.
Right, absolutely. Well, I mean, there's a trespassing problem. There could be a disorderly problem. It could be a number of different things once the officer gets there that are causing the problem. But that's something that our business owners should call on. If someone's in their store and everyone's supposed to be wearing a mask, and they're not, and causing a problem, obviously, I think the department's definitely going to respond to that.
Yes.
That situation. That's
Non-emergency number, please.
Right, non-emergency number. It's not an emergency, but police calls you would if for a trespasser or somebody like that who's causing a problem in the store, because those stores can lose their licensing of various types if the state decides to go that way to enforce.
Yes, sir.
So, okay. But I think that a lot of citizens have asked me, or if Officer Jones is driving down the street and he sees somebody, people out in their front yard talking, and they don't have their mask, he's not gonna try to do something. I didn't think so, but that's the concern, is that it's the police department becoming mask police, and I don't think that's the situation, so. Okay, thanks, appreciate it, thank you.
Good clarification. Yes, sir, Mr. Epperson.
Chief, I just want to express appreciation. I've noticed a lot more patrols in a few different areas than I had in the past, and I've also seen officers stopping and like talking with kids and hanging out and just being very personable with the public. So that was noticed, and also brought to my attention by a bunch of other people that I know that live in the city. So I just want to express appreciation and thankfulness to you and your officers.
Thank you, I'll pass that on.
Very good. Anything else for Bruce? Any committee chair reports?
I have one, Mayor.
Okay.
Development Committee met last week. We plan to meet again next week. Not a lot to report on the comp plan other than we did wrap up,
Following,
what's that?
not next week, following week.
Is it the following week?
Yep.
Okay, my bad. I think it's the 4th. Is that right? Yeah, you're right. Following week. Anyhow, we wrapped up chapters 2 and 3, and we're gonna start diving into 4. So we made some pretty good progress. One thing we did not discuss at the Development Committee meeting that Mr. Hickett and I have had conversations about, and I'd like to have a brief discussion amongst council here. Maybe towards September, beginning of September, once we wrap up chapter 4, obviously we've approved a economic development director's position. We have not approved the funding for that, and obviously this isn't an easy discussion with the report we got tonight with the money side of things, but nevertheless the need's there. Also, Tim and I have talked a little bit. Hop in here, Timmy, if you feel the need to. Is there another option as far as looking at consulting, possibly looking into a cheaper way of doing the economic development through maybe taking a look at the company, I forget their name, that Mr. Platt's hiring. Sumatros, yes. What I'm asking is it council's pleasure for the development committee to look at options? What we don't want to miss is the opportunity to put something in the budget for next year, which is coming right around the corner. So obviously we can't do anything now, don't have the money for that, but the need is very much there and real. I think Timmy will back me on that. So that's what I want to have a discussion on, is not how we're funding it or what we're funding it with. Simply, do you want us as a committee to start having that conversation and come back to council with some options, whether it be to fund that position that we created and passed, or look at other options that may be, I'm thinking maybe that company or any company.
Any company, there might be a bridge.
There might be a B, C, and D, we're all in at A, it costs X, Y, and Z, and then maybe, I don't know, but I'd just like to have some discussion to see what all of you would like us to do. I think we'd be glad to take that on sooner rather than later, so I'll leave it at that and fire away.
Go ahead.
I'd be interested in what the options are. Understanding the fiscal situation, A would be great, but we know that may not be possible this year, or maybe even next year from what it sounds like. So it doesn't mean we pause development though if there's other avenues. So yeah, I would like to see options.
Okay, and again, it's the big thing is with the budget coming out, we want to make sure that something is there for it and what that looks like. At least when I say something's there, put something in front of council to consider and put in there. Because ultimately, that's not the development committee's decision, that's a council decision. So, but we want to put it out there, so. I guess if no one else has any comments, I'll just assume that we're okay to go ahead and start. Go ahead.
Yeah, I think you've heard from me on the development committee, so I'm definitely looking at those options, but I think there's one other step also that we talked about, which was the ability to work with a website, to augment our website, to help site selectors when they look for something, have more information out there. So that may be something that is more specialized than what we're doing right now as far as a website, city website. May need some help with that. I don't know how to, for budgeting purposes, what department that might fall under, Jamie, and maybe you can think about that a little bit to see how we put that stuff together, how we help to, and with whatever consultant firm may be necessary to do that. But I think we talked about managing the website, managing the information coming in. That's a big task, and I don't think when we were at the development committee, I think we came to the conclusion that we really don't have anybody on staff that would be able to do that. So that was another piece to that puzzle.
I think too, and, you know, I sat in a fire board meeting, last week, and what that allows me to do is see what's going on around us, you know, where we might not necessarily see what's going on here. I'm telling you, the thing that I'm seeing is I know Tim and I have kind of back and forth on this a little bit, what's been planned prior to COVID versus what's actually happened now, but the development, and you would know this, that doesn't seem to be slowing down. There's a lot going on to the south of us, and there's a lot going on to the north of us, and I don't want to see us in a position where, you know, we're just kind of in a hold pattern, because we don't have Grand Licking County, you know, we don't have them anymore representing us, and, you know, really right now it's the development committee, and Tim and Scott, we're kind of just grinding it out. Is the best way, you know, the Shank thing came on, and what would have been great was to have someone there to handle it, but we got it, we did it. It was a team effort, and, but there's gonna be more of those, and it's not stopping, this is not stopping the development, so I just don't wanna see us in a spot where we're not.
I'm gonna add too, that we're maybe put in a position that we may not be in the best position possible.
Right.
And we've been in that position before, and just hopeful, I agree 100% that having a professional person, whether it be a firm or a person, directing some of that, aiding some of that site selection, aiding people to come look at Pataskala and why should they be here. That kind of information is hard work to get it together, and Tim has enough things to do daily, especially taking phone calls from councilmen. But you know, there's so much for him to do, and that economic development is a huge piece to anybody's puzzle, whomever gets assigned that.
I'll take that as Tim and I'll start talking and get something on the agenda here in the next month or so to put some options on the table for council to consider. That's all I have, Mayor.
Anything else? Okay, any desire to take 4341 off the table? Are you still waiting for info?
Yes,
Okay,
sir.
Very good. Under old business ordinance 2020-4368 for a third reading.
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Barstow.
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Epperson. Kathy, when you're ready, third reading.
Ordinance 2020-4368, this is the third reading, an ordinance to make supplemental appropriations for current expenses and other expenditures during the fiscal year ending December 31st, 2020.
Discussion?
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, sir.
move to adopt ordinance 2020-4368.
Got a motion to adopt,
Second.
seconded by Mr. Lee. Discussion? And roll, please.
Barstow,
Yes.
Hampshire. Yes. Gaelic,
Yes.
Lee,
Yes.
Walter,
Yes.
Epperson.
Yes.
Okay, ordinance passes. On to resolutions. Resolution 2020-047, a resolution authorizing and directing the city administrator to execute a cost-sharing agreement with the Licking Park District Board of Commissioners and Gilbert Reese Family Foundation for a walking trail improvements at Foundation Park.
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Barstow, seconded by Mr. Lee. Discussion?
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
Yeah, I read this agreement, and maybe I'm just having a bad day, but I can't for the life of me figure out what the fiscal responsibilities are for each of the parties. That is, the city, the Foundation, the Park District. It is very confusing, and I'm in favor of us taking advantage of this partnership and making an improvement to the park, because I think that's a great thing. But this is not, it is poorly worded, at least to my view. I have no idea what anybody's financial obligation is.
Have you had a chance to read that, Mr. Zetz?
Yes,
You approve that?
yes.
Okay.
The cost sharing is outlined in the first paragraph, and each entity is going to be responsible for $38,000 or 1/3 of the total cost of the construction of the walking trail. And then it actually says the construction cost means the actual cost invoice of the construction. So basically, my understanding, after speaking with Lanier, that we would be doing the work to engineer for whatever that will be to get it together, but then the three entities will each split the cost 1/3 or at the most $38,000 for the actual building of the 7,200-foot trail.
Yes, Mr. Walther?
I would agree with Mr. Barstow on this. It seems to me that the two entities, meaning the foundation and the Parks District, have capped their cost at $38,000, but the city's cost is uncapped.
That's true.
As a matter of fact, I would go one step further and say that if this agreement is signed and agreed to, there is no release clause. If let's say this comes in, and this is crazy, but if it comes in at $250,000, they're responsible for $38,000 each, and we're responsible for the rest, and there's no release here to say, we're not gonna do the project. This is a commitment to do the project at whatever cost it comes into.
I don't disagree at all.
Okay, that would be my other
But
concern.
again, I
and
approved this
agree.
to form, I didn't create the
Not a
terms.
problem. I'm pointing out that makes me uncomfortable.
That's a different, right.
It's an issue that Todd, I think, is talking about, but the issue is one more step of, we have no way to stop it
Right.
if it comes in at some crazy number.
Well, then, that's kind of what I meant, is that, I guess I was making a blanket statement, thank you, Mr. Walther, that's a specific issue. I mean, that, and then, it's just not clear what anybody's responsibilities are. It needs to be, there's two problems I have with this agreement as it sits right now. One is, I think it needs to be very specific as to either the dollar amount that everyone's agreeing to pay specifically, or what is the final cost gonna be? We don't have Mr. Crawford here to tell us. I mean, it's a 7,200 foot, so a mile and a half, mile and a quarter.
We got estimates, right?
Well, there was an estimate, and that estimate was given to us by an engineering firm that said that was they figured out for the aggregate path what the cost would be. They looked at the site, and then it was divided in threes, and that's how the 38,000 came into being. And this has taken quite a circuitous route, because somewhere in there was also a step on a clutch, and there was a concept of paving the entire thing. But when the estimate from the engineer came back for that, the other entities felt that was too high. This is an initial partnership between, we haven't done anything with the Park District in quite a while, and or the Evans Park, and we're grateful to them for for kicking in. And that's how we got to the 38,000 for each individual. I don't know about whether or not we would be bound to, if the estimate comes back at $350,000, I guess I would say, why would we not have the ability to say,
We're not doing it.
Well, but the agreement doesn't give us
Yeah,
that
the agreement
ability.
doesn't say
The agreement
that, and not like-
binds us to doing it.
This is, so, here's an example of what I'm saying. On the first page, the last whereas, it says the Reese Family Foundation and the Park District each desire to contribute financial assistance towards the city's upcoming construction of the walking trail improvements, and each have agreed to pay 1/3 of the construction cost thereto, or $38,000, whichever is less. I'm not sure if they're going to split 1/3, or if they're each going to pay 1/3.
No, that's true,
It is not clear. But then you flip over to the on the second page, paragraph 3, maximum contribution. Under no circumstances shall the Reese Family Foundations or the Park District's respective obligations under section 2, which is billing, exceed $38,000. Well, that's, I don't know, does that mean $38,000 a piece, or does that mean $38,000 total? That's what they contribute. This just needs to be,
Just say or, but sure, I mean, we can make it more clear, but I also don't know, I thought that the total cost was going to be 38 times 3,000, that was the engineer's estimate. So if it couldn't come in at $350,000, because then we wouldn't be,
We'd be
right,
over-
because you couldn't bid the project, because we're responsible for all bidding and
Right.
the rest of that, so.
I guess it's just, it needs to be cleaned up a little bit to make it clear. What I think what it means is that the Park District is gonna pay $38,000. The foundation, of course, there are 4 entities involved. There's 2 foundations, the Park District and the city. So I don't know why it's in a third. It's just not, it just needs to be fixed. I'm all in favor of getting money from somebody else to pay for our parks, because our citizens pay a tax for parks that are in other parts of the county. So I'm down with this. It just needs to be fixed. That's what I'm saying, so.
Well, let me first of all say, I don't know that the Thomas J. Evans Foundation, I think the Reese Foundation is the proper one as identified by the Evans people to be a signature to this. The only thing I would say is that I realize this is gonna be, for those of you that are versed in looking at contracts and seeing the minutia, a small point in your eyes. It did take a lot of work and a lot of back and forth. They have signed these. I have signed these. I think the beauty of the way I remember asking Brian, I don't know what other, I mean, I think it's moving forward. It's something that I agree with you. I just don't know if I want to. If as the administrator, I sure would like to move it forward. And if your guys' position is, I'm not going to vote for something that is ambiguous like this, I understand that. But go ahead. Well, I guess I'm not-
Suggestion, and I think Alan would probably agree with me, the engineering on this is pretty simple, as far as a section and a aerial map that would be able to be bid by contractors. I certainly would feel a lot more comfortable if we actually had proposals from contractors, that we knew what this cost would end up being, then the risk factor is reduced immensely. If it were able to get out to a contractor and they say, yes, it is, let's say, just for hypothetical purposes, $110,000, then we know everybody has less than $38,000 of skin in the game. So that would be great. That would be wonderful, and I think the engineering is really simple on this, for this path to be put out for bid. Is it possible, Tim, to hold the resolution, put this out and get proposals from contractors, and then come back with the resolution with a proposal attached to it? Is that feasible in your mind?
I would agree with the statement. I don't know how the other, if that will cause the other entities, but I don't, go ahead, Brian.
I would say probably, I can't speak for them, but I don't think it would cause them too much heartburn, because then because what you're trying to do is nail down that cost, and then at your point, then you could, in the maximum contributions, it could be very clear of what it would be, because then you would have bid it, you'll know what the cost is going to truly be. I don't think they would have, we'd have to change it, they could re-sign it, but I don't think it would be, like I said, I don't think it would cause them much heartburn, because at that point, then
And Tim's
those
point is
details will be wired down.
having the Park District participate with anything in Pataskala would be a great first step with them.
No, and I'm very grateful to them and the Reese people.
It's a great first
Like
step.
Todd said.
No, it's great. It's just that I can't imagine why they would object, because it's delaying the them having to pay out any money. I can't
Well, if
imagine
you
my
would know
family
what the
complaining
very
about that.
first version of this, like way back in the day, this was a very much,
Oh, gosh.
it was very loose.
I think it was like written
This
on a
is
napkin. It was
much-
pretty bad. It was pretty bad.
I actually just said no to it.
Right, I don't wanna be, again, I'm not trying to be overly critical, it's just that, but I am being overly critical, it's just that we're gonna have, we have financial, we've identified earlier in this meeting, a significant financial issue with the city. It's facing every government from the state on down in right now. So, that makes me very leery. Again, with Mr. Walther pointed out, if this had come with, here's the engineering estimate for what this is gonna cost, it would make it a much clearer, easier decision. Okay, all right, so.
I think we do have, and from the park board, from discussions at the park board, there is an engineering estimate, there is one, but, you know, I will say this, and I think most people involved with engineers will know that they're usually conservative, and they sometimes put the number higher than it actually is. But there are occasions where they miss, and the number comes in much higher than what they estimated. So this is really my position, or my opinion, just a risk evaluation. If we had a proposal, if we put this out to bid and had contractors actually give us actual construction costs to do it, I would feel a lot more comfortable with that.
So my question to Brian would be, is tabling this appropriate?
It sounds like a yes. And
And
then
I
we'll
would,
do that
I
and
guess as a
circle back later.
city administrator, I'd ask for a motion to that effect.
Looking for a motion.
Any other discussion? Okay, Mr. Mayor, I move that we table resolution 2020-047.
Got a motion to table,
I'll second.
seconded by Mr. Walther. Discussion? And roll.
Hampshire,
Yes.
Gaelic,
Yes.
Lee,
Yes.
Walther,
Yes.
Epperson,
Yes.
Barstow,
Yes.
047 is tabled. Resolution 2020-048, a resolution authorizing and directing the city administrator to execute a settlement agreement with Fannin Limited Partnership and James L. Deagle.
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Barstow, seconded by Mr. Walther. Discussion and roll.
Gaelic,
Yes.
Lee,
Yes.
Walther,
Yes.
Epperson,
Yes.
Barstow,
Yes.
Hampshire,
Yes.
Resolution passes. Resolution 2020-049, a resolution authorizing and directing the city administrator to execute a contract with MP Dory Company to complete the traffic signal improvement project at the Broad Street and Watkins Road intersection.
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Barstow,
Second.
seconded by Mr. Epperson. Discussion and roll.
Lee,
Yes.
Walther,
Yes.
Epperson,
Yes.
Barstow,
Yes.
Hampshire,
Yes.
Gaelic,
Yes.
Resolution passes. Resolution 2020-050, a resolution authorizing and directing the city administrator to execute a interagency agreement with the Southwest Licking Community Water and Sewer District.
Move. So moved.
So moved by Mr. Epperson,
Second.
seconded by Mr. Lee. Discussion?
Mr. Gaelic.
Yes, sir.
Seconded.
Mr. Gaelic seconded it.
Well, they did it at the same time, that's fine. Mr.
Sorry.
Gaelic or Mr. Lee, you take it. He's finally piping up tonight, so put his name down.
Yeah.
Any discussion?
Yes, sir. Mr. Mayor.
Yes.
Quick question for Mr. Zetz. In the agreement, it talks about, in section 2 of the agreement, it talks about this agreement being signed on July 1st or about July 1st of 2020. Do you have any issue with that? And we're past that by a good portion.
I do not.
Okay, just making sure you're okay with that agreement.
Any other discussion?
Well, because it's like, it's a full, like Rob had said when he was here tonight, it's a good 6 months, hopefully less to get it all done, so I don't have a problem
Okay.
with the date.
Okay. Roll, please.
Walther,
Yes.
Epperson,
Yes.
Barstow,
Yes.
Hampshire,
Yes.
Gaelic,
Yes.
Lee,
Yes.
Resolution passes. Scott, would you just check real quick outside and see if there's anybody
You got it.
hanging around? Thank you. Nope. Additional citizens' comments, anybody? Okay, not seeing anything, thank you, Scott. We'll go around the room and start with Mr. Epperson.
I have nothing there.
Okay, Mr. Gaelic.
I just want to thank everybody involved with the pool. I know it's been a lot of work, we've had a lot of issues, but I know everyone's been working really hard on it all the way around, so I want to thank everybody for that.
Mr. Barstow.
Nothing, sir.
Mr. Zetz.
Nothing.
Mr. Walter.
Utility committee, would like to, schedule something for August 3rd at 6:30. That would be, Tommy, are you okay with that?
Yes, I should.
And Mr. Barstow, would you be okay with that?
August 3rd?
That's our next meeting. Just, Mr. Schrock needs about, hopefully 30 minutes or less
That's fine.
of our time. 6:30, if that's
6:30,
okay. I know
fine.
you've got
Leadership.
leadership. Is that at all gonna be a conflict for you?
No, that's fine.
Okay.
Yeah.
Kathy, do we have anything for,
I don't see
Utility?
anything.
okay,
I'm good.
good? That's right, I'm sorry. I forget that. Sorry. Yeah. Okay, thank you. I would want to, again, echo Mr. Gaelick's comments. It's a tough place to be. The pool is it's a tough business right at the moment, and I think that there's some work that can be done. I think there's some ideas that can be hashed around, and I'm sure that there'll be some community organizations that will be glad to step up and help with temporary solutions for the pool leak. I can almost bet on that.
Like a lot of people sticking their finger in the cracks or
Not
something?
that way.
Okay.
No.
Okay, anything else, sir?
No, sure, thanks.
Jude?
Two quick things. Marching band kicks off tomorrow at Licking Heights. They're having to get creative how they're going to handle that, but it appears to be going forward. And just a reminder, my son, my third son is working on that Eagle project. He's been given a 90-day extension by Boy Scouts, much needed, because he turned 18 on July 1st. So it's over at Black Hand Forge, and he's getting ready to set a couple work days, so I'll let everybody know.
Very good. Tim, do you have anything, sir?
I do, I just want to say two quick things. Thank you for the passing of Farron and Deagle. I'd like to say amen. Also, when we heard the gentleman talk about 4 stars for our freedom of information requests, Kathy gets big kudos on that. So does Brian, Jamie, the administration in general. We're pretty good about trying to turn that stuff around, but Kathy is really, really good about public information requests. So 3 of those stars are yours, Kathy.
Thank you, Kathy.
I'll deliver those gold stars tomorrow. We'll put them right here. Thank you, Tim. Mr. Lee?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Lee, seconded by Mr. Barstow. Discussion and roll.
Walter?
Yes?
Epperson?
Yes.
Barstow?
Yes.
Hampshire?
Yes.
Gaelic?
Yes.
Lee?
Yes.
Meeting adjourned.
Oh, thank you very much. Yeah. So, Brandon, you're cool. I think you got a fill up crack.
I wish I did.
Chris,